In July 1944, in the Saône-et-Loire, German soldiers pulled Maurice Blanchot, a French writer, out of his family's country house. Some of them, it later turned out, were Russians, conscripts from the Vlastov army, fighting for the Wehrmacht. They put Blanchot against a wall, preparing to shoot him. The officer was about to give the order. Then, in the distance, they heard gunfire, fighters from the French resistance. The soldiers turned away. One of them gestured for Blanchot to leave. He ran into the woods. He survived. But something happened in that interval, between the order that was about to be given and the gunfire that interrupted it, that he could not locate. 50 years later, in a short book called The Instant of My Death, he tried to write it down. I know, do I know it? That the one at whom the Germans were already aiming, awaiting but the final order, experienced then a feeling of extraordinary lightness, a sort of beatitude, nothing happy, however, sovereign elation, the encounter of death with death. The I that should have died did die, in some way Blanchot could not afterward name. He survived as someone else, or as no one. The instant of his death had taken place, only the death itself had not arrived. He spent the rest of his life writing about this experience, not as an autobiography. He refused photographs, interviews, and almost every form of public visibility. He died in 2003, at 95, having left a body of fragmentary and difficult work that became a hidden foundation for the French thinkers who followed him: Foucault, Derrida, Levinas, Barthes. His most concentrated statement on what we might call the structure of catastrophe is a book published in 1980, The Writing of the Disaster. He wrote it in fragments, aphorisms, interruptions, passages that start in the middle of a thought and never complete it. This is not carelessness. It is, he makes clear, the only honest form such an argument could take. Blanchot's target is what he calls the system. He has Hegel in mind, but the concept extends outward to cover the whole fanatic ambition of Western rationality. The drive to bring everything, history, suffering, contradiction, death itself, into a unified, closed, accountable whole. The system does not merely organize, it totalizes. It insists that every event has a place, that every loss can be named and measured, that even catastrophe can be processed, absorbed, and made to yield a lesson. In the Hegelian dialectic, death is fuel. Negation drives the machine forward. Destruction becomes the precondition of progress. Blanchot calls this drive the sovereignty of the one, the demand that everything be drawn into a single order, that nothing remain unaccounted for, that no remainder be permitted. Outside that sovereignty, he writes, the demand of the other, the multiple, the impoverished, the lost, presses as never before as that which has always escaped realization. This is the logic that produces the bureaucratic management of atrocity. Every deportation has a case number, every airstrike a targeting protocol. The actions of the United States government today combine open corruption with the construction of an unbreakable apparatus of surveillance, psychological manipulation, and physical control. Immigrants are pulled into vans and flown to detention complexes in third countries. Munitions continue to fall on Gaza. The administration moves toward a more direct military posture toward Iran. None of this is experienced from inside the apparatus as violation. It is experienced as procedure. The system makes use of catastrophe and chaos to perpetuate itself and to increase its power. The disaster ruins everything, all the while leaving everything intact. The formulation is deliberately paradoxical. The system absorbs catastrophe and feeds on it. When the war ends, the dead are counted. Memorials are built. History resumes. Even the Holocaust reinforces the system's logic. It became the absolute event of history, studied, archived, integrated into a narrative that gives it meaning and, in the end, normalizes, or routinizes it. Concentration camps, annihilation camps, Blanchot writes, emblems wherein the invisible has made itself visible forever. The disaster for him is not the event itself. It is what the event leaves behind. The excess the system cannot incorporate. It is always already past. It has already happened. It is not coming. And yet it remains as a permanent pressure at the edge of what the system can know or do. What makes the system so insidious, Blanchot writes, is not that it will fail, but that it also cannot succeed. What exceeds the system is the impossibility of its failure, and likewise the impossibility of its success. The system cannot be defeated from within its own logic. Every challenge either gets absorbed as a problem to be solved or passed through it without impacting it. Protest provides useful data. Opposition becomes the occasion for refinement. Floods, famines, and earthquakes allow for movements of capital. So what in this situation is the work left for the writer? What is the value of language if every word can be assimilated back into the very mechanism the writer is seeking to turn against? Blanchot's answer comes most clearly in an earlier book, The Space of Literature, published in 1955. And it is not what most theories of literature offer. He does not say the writer is a witness, or a maker of meaning, or a voice of conscience. He says the writer is an exile. The poem is an exile, and the poet who belongs to it belongs to the dissatisfaction of exile. He is always lost to himself, outside, far from home. He belongs to the foreign, to the outside, which knows no intimacy or limit. The writer, in Blanchot's account, is not a sovereign creator. He is a wanderer, errant in the French. He has left the world of productive labor, the world of clear tasks, definite ends, and entered a region where the work he is engaged with does not belong to him and cannot be finished. The wanderer's country is not truth, Blanchot writes, but exile. He lives outside, on the other side, which is by no means a beyond, rather the contrary. There is a French word Blanchot uses for this condition, désœuvrement. It translates awkwardly, unworking, idleness, being out of work, but it does not mean leisure. It names a refusal of the logic by which work produces results. Ordinary labor, in his account, is negativity in action, death as power and possibility. The writer's work, l'œuvre, is the opposite, impotence endlessly affirmed. The writer, who has any chance of producing language the system cannot absorb, has to remain outside the word, has to remain outside the world of usable speech. To write, Blanchot writes, is to withdraw language from the world, to detach it from whatever makes it a power. The writer of fragments is not making a positive contribution. He is producing a kind of language the system cannot turn into its own input. In the end, Blanchot writes, the writer is exiled even from his own text. The writer never reads his work. It is for him illegible, a secret. He cannot linger in its presence. It is a secret because he is separated from it. However, his inability to read the work is not a purely negative phenomenon. It is, rather, the writer's only real relation to what we call the work. Blanchot was not alone in his diagnosis of the system as one of excess and enclosure. His closest interlocutor was Georges Bataille, librarian, pornographer, theorist of waste, founder of secret societies, friend of Blanchot's from the 1940s until Bataille's death in 1962. Where Blanchot explored literature and the limits of logic, Bataille wrote on expenditure, sacrifice, waste, the sacred, and transgression. The diagnosis in both cases was essentially the same. Bataille's short essay, Rotten Sun, published in 1930, deconstructs Western rationalism with a single image. The sun, he begins, is the great symbol of Western reason, mathematical serenity, and spiritual elevation. It is the image of the Enlightenment, of clear sight of the orderly day. But this is only the sun in the mind of one whose weak eyes compel him to emasculate it. If one looks directly at the sun, Bataille writes, a certain madness is implied. The light that grounds reason, viewed without protection, is refuse or combustion. It can be identified, he writes, with a mental ejaculation, foam on the lips, and an epileptic crisis. In the same essay, he defines the limit of Western rationality. At the furthest point of evolution of absolute knowledge, elevation is the fall. Humanity is animality. Insight is blindness. Health is terminal pathology. God, when he knows, is a pig. Blanchot and Bataille make a specific philosophical claim that any system of thought organized around total knowledge, Enlightenment reason, Hegel's absolute, cybernetics, and the current quest for synthetic superintelligence has a blind spot, an aporia, at its center. There is something the system cannot see, and the more rigorously it pursues its goals, the more violently the remainder asserts itself. Bataille called this remainder the heterogeneous. What homogeneous society, productive, rational, conserving, cannot assimilate. Waste, the body, sex, the sacred, madness, the dead. He proposed a second economy beneath the visible one. In The Accursed Chair, published in 1949, he reverses the notion of economy. The classical economic system, what he calls the restricted economy, treats human life as if its basic problem were scarcity, and its goal, accumulation. Bataille proposes a general economy, starting from the opposite fact, that life on Earth receives from the sun more energy than it can use. There is always a surplus. Life is, in his account, an ecstasy of excess and plenitude, of energy converted into waste and entropy. The question is not how to acquire more. The question is what to do with this surplus. The living organism, in a situation determined by the play of energy on the surface of the globe, ordinarily receives more energy than is necessary for maintaining life. The excess energy, wealth, can be used for the growth of a system. If the system can no longer grow, or if the excess cannot be completely absorbed in its growth, it must necessarily be lost without profit. It must be spent, willingly or not, gloriously or catastrophically. This is the choice every civilization faces. The excess can be expended in sacrifice, in festival, in ritual destruction, in art, in eroticism, what Bataille called dépense, the conscious squandering of the surplus. Or it can be repressed, ignored, denied. But then pressure builds up and it is released catastrophically through war, ecological collapse, mass-administered violence, genocide, and so on. Both Blanchot and Bataille understood our system, call it modernity, the Enlightenment, capital, as one that seeks to incorporate everything into a single, productive, accountable whole. The system produces by its own logic an excess it cannot incorporate. The suppression of this excess, what Bataille called the accursed share, does not eliminate it. It returns, displaced, haunting the edges of the system's efforts at closure. We are now fully within the disaster. The deportee, taken to a foreign country with no protocol or law to protect him, the city reduced to rubble by AI-guided munitions, the mega-drought, the sixth great extinction, the collapse of the job market with no remaining safety net. These are not aberrations from a system that is otherwise sound. This is what the system does when it is working normally. The sovereignty of the one, the demand that everything be nameable, classifiable, and expendable according to function, has been permitted to pursue its logic without remainder. There is an objection that has to be made here, and it is best to make it openly. When Blanchot theorizes the writer as a figure outside the system of legibility and accountability, he is also mythologizing his own position. He left the public sphere. He refused photographs. He wrote difficult books that only a small number of people read. His theory of writing as exile is, in part, a description of the life he had chosen. The seer at the margin of the catastrophe is conveniently the figure he had already become. That is true. It is also not the whole truth, because what Blanchot is pointing at, even when he is partly describing himself, is structurally real. The system cannot be defeated by being addressed in its own terms. Every program it absorbs makes it more efficient. The forms of attention that escape this, fragmentary writing, refusal, désœuvrement, ritual expenditure, sacrifice, the heterogeneous, are not solutions in the system's sense. They cannot be scaled, recommended as policy, or institutionalized. That is precisely why they retain whatever power they have. What Blanchot calls for is something he names as passive vigilance. An alertness to what cannot be named, what cannot be made to serve, what falls outside what can be interpreted or categorized within the binary on-off logic of the West. Not a program, not a position, a form of attention. He notes, to write is perhaps to bring to the surface something like absent meaning, to welcome the passive pressure which is not yet what we call thought, for it is already the disastrous ruin of thought. The disaster is not what happens when the system fails. The disaster is the system. Therefore, our first act of responding to the present is to look directly at what reason cannot understand or assimilate, what always falls outside. We can adopt a form of attention that resists assimilation into any program, no matter how seductive or seemingly sensible, that pretends to know the answers or tells us what we do next.